Okay, and I think we're live. Anyway, so hello everyone. Let us know as usual if the voices are coming across okay, and I'll pass it over to Rog.
Yeah, testing 1, 2, 3. Let's hope it's working anyway. But we'll start off with a normal intro for the audio one anyway. Okay. Hello, welcome to Recentered episode 43. Your monthly-ish look at all the stuff what's been happening in VR, hardware, and software and gaming. Lee isn't with us this month. Hopefully he'll be back next month. He's got some personal stuff to take care of. But in the meantime, I'm joined by Gary and Steve is back, our international transatlantic correspondent. Steve, how are you? It's been a while.
I'm good. So everybody watching on YouTube can see the little avatar, and I tried to be very dramatic, like Lee's avatar is, so that nothing was missing from this month's show.
Excellent. Oh dear. What you've been up to in the meantime? Anyway, it's been about a year or so, hasn't it, since you've been on?
Yeah, when I opened up OBS that I haven't opened, I think since I joined you guys last, I saw some of the files from it was January last year. I'm pretty sure, and I think it was right after UEVR released, and that's kind of why you guys pulled me in, knowing I was going to be a big VR mod UEVR dork. So yeah, it's really like to sum it all up, like that's pretty much all I've done VR wise. For almost all of 2024 was just a crap ton of UEVR. But I've played some traditional VR games too along the way. But yeah, it's been mostly UEVR.
Excellent. It's one of those things where I have a bit of a go at the odd thing every now and again, but I desperately want that upgrade before I really delve into it. My graphics card, it can handle some stuff okay. But I definitely think my CPU's letting me down nowadays. It's like 7 years old at this point. I think those draw calls just are a bit too much for it in places, especially with UEVR. So anyway,
yeah, it's definitely inefficient. You got to brute force your way through that stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely going AMD this time. That's it now. I've been like Team Intel for forever, but it's time to change, I think. Gary, what you been up to?
So over Christmas I went away for a week, so I didn't play much VR then, and I had probably a couple of weeks off at least playing VR really. And other than we mentioned last time, there was when we were speaking about my first Gran Turismo, and I mentioned in that when we were talking about that I would probably be picking up the full game and a new racing wheel that was compatible with PS5 as well, and that's what I did. So I've got the G29, the Logitech G29 wheel now. Picked up the full GT7, absolutely love it. Everybody was right, and I can't believe I held off this long to actually get that game. I'm just showing footage of my first Gran Turismo still at the minute on the screen, but the full game's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Have you played GT7, Steve, on PS5?
Yeah, I have it. It's still my favorite racing game. I prefer the PC VR performance and visuals, of course, but GT7 is so accessible. Like the how you go from race to race, and it gives it purpose. So I don't know why the Assetto Corsos and a lot of the PC VR stuff can't do that. I wish they did, but because of that accessibility, it's probably my favorite racing game.
Did you pick up a PS5? Did you pick up a Pro at all? Sorry, did you say? Or?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't rationalize it, because it's really the only thing. Like, if they patched Resident Evil 4, that would probably get me over the line for a Pro. Because I've not played it with PC VR because I've been waiting for Praydog to do motion controls. He's never done that with his Resident Evil mod.
Right.
So I'm still kind of in limbo. But yeah, if they ever patch RE4 for PlayStation, it may get me over because I can't deal with the excessive reprojection and judge that game has.
That's exactly how I feel as well. If they patched all of those games to not have reprojection, I'd be very tempted with a Pro.
Yeah, the PS5 Pro patch for GT7 makes such a difference. It's like I want that so much on Resident Evil. It's I picked Resident Evil 4 up, but it was on sale, so I could cope with playing it as it is because I didn't pay a lot for it. But yeah, I still want it to. I just want it at native 90 hertz. It'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But you got an arcade stick as well.
Yeah, so I got sent this by X Arcade. This is the Arcade TV stick, which I'm just showing a bit of my review on screen now. But yeah, you can check out the full review on my channel anyway. But it's fantastic. I will say, like what I said at the end of that review, this is one of the first things that I would say is probably worth the money in all things considered. When you take into account if you're going to use it for everything that it can be used for, I think it's worth the money in that case. If you're only going to use it as let me explain quickly as well. So you can use it with a Quest 3 in standalone mode, download a piece of software that you get free with it, and then you've got an arcade cabinet in your room in mixed reality, and you can play all sorts of different stuff in that arcade. You can download the ROMs and play all these arcade games with it. And it's fantastic. And the controller maps one-to-one with the controller in mixed reality because it tracks your controllers when you place them in the top of the arcade stick. And that's one use case. But then you've also got these other use cases where you can, use it as a normal arcade stick, play flat games and stuff. If you wanted to on a monitor and a Raspberry Pi, you can connect it and do all of that stuff as well. And also with Arcade Time Capsule, which we'll discuss a little bit later on in this episode, which is a PC version, arcade simulator, really. And if you're going to use it for all of those use cases, I think it's well worth the money, which is about £400 and it's about $499. But if you're only going to use it for one of those things, it's probably excessive, to be honest. But it works really well. It's got that trackball in the centre as well, just like the tank stick. I think people are making the comparison between the tank stick and it's not got as much palm or wrist rest area, which a lot of people are a little bit annoyed by with this. And I can understand that, but I still think it's a great device if you're going to use it for all the use cases. So yeah, it's a good one. It's definitely good.
Yeah, I'd really like something like that. It's just, again, it's one of those things where I don't have my flight stick set up or a steering wheel anymore because it's where to put the damn things.
Yeah.
And, I end up shunting them about, and I had them on Wheel Stand Pro so I could collapse them and stick them under the stairs and everything. But then you've got to drag them back out, set them up, and unless I'm going to do that for like an afternoon, it just got to be a bit of a pain.
Yeah.
I've still not bought myself an arcade stick for Arcade Time Capsule yet. I keep putting it off, but I just want a small one, wireless one. So
yeah, you don't need the 2-player if you're going to play on your own with Arcade Time Capsule or anything. You don't need this excessive kind of thing. It's really, I think my point of view is if you want an arcade cabinet, the thing is this takes up a lot less room than an arcade cabinet and stuff. So it provides that, and you could just stick a monitor on the wall with a Raspberry Pi. It'd take up much less room than an arcade cabinet, and it would give you that experience really. But like I say, it's all of these things. I struggle as well with space in my room. You've both been in my room. It's not a huge room where I do all my VR stuff, and I've got a racing wheel set up. I've got my HOTAS, but I've got it set up in a way where I can sort of put it away, and it is hassle. I understand that. And this thing, I don't know. I can't really keep this out next to my arcade cabinet indefinitely. I'm trying to persuade my wife to let me put it in the house, but I don't. She's not really keen at the minute.
So that's why you offered to lend it to me.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Get it out of the way for a bit. Yeah.
Oh dear.
But yeah, that's about pretty much all I've been up to since the last show anyway.
Yeah. I'll remember to. I always forget to say what I've been up to, which hasn't actually been a lot really. I've been jumping into the odd bit of flat stuff. I ended up in Diablo 4 simply because it was on Game Pass, and I've not played a Diablo type game since the original Torchlight. Although I did end up playing, and I've forgotten the name of it. I did send you the trailer.
Thank goodness you're here.
Thank goodness you're here. That's it. Which I think is probably a must-play game for anybody from Yorkshire. It's a bit crazy. It's a totally daft game. It takes about 2 hours to get through, and it's genuinely funny. I was absolutely smiling and laughing all the way through this thing. The bizarre thing was I didn't know because I'd not really seen much about it apart from I knew it was like set in like this fictional Yorkshire town. And there's Roger's or it's literally spelled ROG. It's like Roger's fruit and veg shop or something daft. I thought, God, I've had more fruit and veg in this game than I actually do in real life, which ain't good. It's a really odd game though. It's sort of, it made me think of, like, do you remember the old games like back on the 8-bit stuff, like Jack the Nipper and like Everyone's a Wally or 3 Weeks in Paradise? Those sort of games. I don't know.
Jack the Nipper, I remember. Yeah.
It sort of, I don't know. It sort of made me think of, maybe it isn't a modern version of those. I don't know, but they came to mind. But
is it not like a point and click or something?
No. It's basically, all you've got is you've got movement, you've got interact, and then you've got punch.
Right.
And that's it. It's a very arcadey type thing. I say you'll get through it in 2 hours, and you will laugh your way through it as well. It's proper funny. It's worth picking up anyway. Short game though, so maybe get it on sale. I think it's like 15 or 16 quid or something like that normally. It were a bit off it during the Steam sale, so I grabbed it. But yeah, worth a look, especially if you can get it cheaper anyway. But just trying to think, anything else we've not covered?
Steve's got these games we should probably get through.
Yeah. So what I've been doing lately, about a month ago, I had this really strong urge to play a survival game. And that happens sometimes where it's like, I want a certain game of a certain kind of flavor. And when that happens, I typically try to listen to the urge, because, it can bring some good enjoyment. So on the Recentered Discord, I kind of made a post, and Mainfan and Odin both came back and were like, hey, you should check out Valheim. And I've always discounted that game just because visually it looked very Minecrafty. And they purposely have some very low res textures, but there's other parts of the game and the lighting that actually look really good. And the mod actually does motion controls really, really well. It's some of it is kind of gamepad conversion a little bit, but they give you a quick select, and you're chopping down trees for wood, and you're really chopping the trees down. And the combat, you get eventually you get to a certain shield type that can parry, and you're actually parrying the enemies, and it stuns them. So it's a really good mix of motion controls without it being, some motion control games, they try to go too far, and then it just ends up being cumbersome, and you're just fighting the controls constantly. So this game ended up really surprising me, and I got like super, super hooked and got through the first 2 biomes in a few days, pretty much. And I'm about to tackle the boss of the third biome. And but it's very grindy. Like, you need tons and tons of materials, and it's that gameplay loop of, hey, I want to add this thing to my base that lets me build the next armor set or the next weapon. And then you build that, and you're like, well, maybe I'll go a little bit longer because now I can get the shield. And then you build that, and it's just like, next thing you know, you've played an extra hour and a half, and you've gone through both of your Bobo batteries. So I really, really recommend it. So thanks to Mainfan and Odin for putting me on this track. And my youngest actually started playing it with me. So she's upstairs and playing on a desktop, and I'm playing in VR. And she says I look weird on her screen, I guess because of the mod. But otherwise, you can play co-op, and so it's been good playing it with my kid. But now I have to wait for my kid, who went to Disney for a while, and I couldn't play. So still wanting to do survival. I decided to go back into the Forest VR, so I'm playing 2 survival games kind of at the same time, only because my Valheim time is now kind of locked by my kid here. And the Forest VR is a game that I had gotten pretty far into during COVID year, but then I ended up moving. And when we decided to list our house and go through that whole process, I got out of it and never got back to it. So I'm about another 15 hours into restarting it from scratch. And it's also a really good game to me. It's very different than Valheim in the sense that it's more, I won't say horror, although it can be scary. It is more I can't even say action oriented. More you're it's just a different type of action, and both are difficult. So it's a good. I think playing them both kind of at the same time is they're similar enough to keep scratching that survival itch that I'm currently having, but different enough that it doesn't feel like I'm just kind of doubling up and playing the same game over. Although there's lots of wood resource gathering.
I played a bit of Valheim, the VR mod, a while ago, and only on a surface level, really, just trying it out, and it did work really well. And I've played the Forest. How did you find the performance in both of them? Because on my system, Valheim was okay. Valheim I could get running quite well. The Forest has always been a bit of a pain to get running well on my system.
So I was surprised. Now I'm on a 4090, and I know we're going to talk GPUs here today.
Yeah.
But I was surprised because I'm playing it wirelessly over virtual desktop, and I was expecting the compression to really be a problem, and it's certainly there. It's not without fault. But I'm playing this one on H.264 Plus and have the thing set to 500 megabit, and it actually looks pretty good and is playing very smooth. It's very counter. I think the VR release of it came out in 2018 maybe, something like that. It was a couple years or so, year and a half after kind of the launch of consumer VR, and it ran terrible then. And it, people with top end systems really couldn't run it right. Nowadays, to me, I have a 13900K and a 4090, playing on a Quest 3 in virtual desktop in godlike or whatever the top setting they call it in virtual desktop, and it's running really smooth. It's probably enough time has passed that we now have the hardware to play this game like it should be.
Yeah.
And it's like a 10-year-old game. I think when they released the flat version, and it actually looks really good. Like, I guess at the time it was they really pushed the tech maybe, or they're just good aesthetic developers for making the visuals, because it holds its own. It does not feel like a 10-year-old game to me, at least aesthetically.
Are you not using the AV1 then on virtual desktop?
I do. So anything with there's certain types of scenery where the different codecs can shine differently. If I'm playing something, another game I've been playing has been Stranger Things, and I think I played it on AV1. But I also have a dedicated access point that there are no other devices on this, and I don't see the value of Wi-Fi 6E for all the other devices in the house. All of our computers are Ethernet ran, and so it's really only our phones and the random Google Home or type devices that are on Wi-Fi. So I disabled the Wi-Fi 6 for the house, and it's dedicated to my my Quest streaming.
Same.
I've got a dedicated router, Wi-Fi 6E, and I will say, because I've got a Wi-Fi 6 and a Wi-Fi 6E router, I'll be honest, there's not a lot of difference between the two in practical performance or anything like that from what I can see, and both of those dedicated as well. I've got one in the house and one in my garage, so yeah.
And in virtual desktop, mine stays pegged at what, 2100 megabit, whatever that top
24
is when you pull up.
Yeah.
And so it's not really AV1 is, I think its value is probably more for if you're not dedicated and you can't have the stability, because the older codecs are they require more throughput, but the encoding and the decoding side of them isn't as intense on the chips, particularly on the Quest side. So AV1, I think, has a promising future, but it's the first iteration of it, and it's not as great for certain detail scenes. So if you want set it and forget it, AV1's probably fine. But if you can go dedicated, you might be better off with H.264 Plus.
I'll have to play about with that, because I've just had mine set on AV1 since I got my Wi-Fi 6E router, and I've just left it at that. I've never bothered playing about with the sort of with X264 at the higher settings, but I don't know.
Well,
I'll have to have a look.
Yeah, in virtual desktop, there's a H.264 and there's a
Yeah.
H.264 plus. And I forget exactly what the plus does. I think it changed the color depth or something possibly. And I'm using the plus.
Right.
I use the you've got the HEVC 10-bit on there as well, which the reason I use that, well, first of all, I get good results with it anyway. It looks great. I don't see that many compression artifacts or anything like that. But also, people that have AV1 and have access to that, I've just seen loads of people on forums and stuff say that they actually prefer HEVC 10-bit occasionally. You know, it's not necessarily, like you were saying, Steve, it's not necessarily one or the other, but that's enough to make me use it. And I get good performance, I get good results with it. But yeah, I mean, I guess if, like you say, we'll be talking about GPUs later on. If I do upgrade, I'll definitely be giving AV1 a try next time anyway.
Yeah.
Sure,
But
yeah.
Steve, you've got Trombone Champ listed on your stuff you've been playing
here we
as well.
go. Here we go.
So, what did you think?
I think it made my hands hurt, is what I think. It's fine. I like music games. You know, I'm not like Gary, where he despises rhythm games. I've always liked Rock Band, Guitar Hero, you know, Beat Saber. So yeah, this is right up my alley. This one was a little bit different because of its, you know, trying to mimic the trombone aspect of playing a trombone, and the default settings are you have to keep I think was the grip squeeze for the for your dominant hand, the one that's sliding back and forth. And there's a setting in there to make that toggle. Yeah. So once I kind of learned some of the settings, then my hand started to hurt less. But yeah, it's very challenging. It's one of those games though. You know, I think I got it. I guess at normal price. I don't think it was on the Steam sale because it had just released. And yeah, it's fine. It's $15. I did want to support. Part of what made me get it too was also to support flat to VR. Obviously, the work they're doing is something that, as a person that likes playing flat games in VR, due to just what modded games can bring in terms of fidelity and depth of experience, I want to support that studio because I definitely agree with what they're trying to do. So. That's part of why I bought it. And the other part was, you know, I did want to check the game out. It's not a game that I'll go into very often. And in fact, I don't know that I'll really even necessarily go to it again. I played it for maybe 30 minutes. I started to I couldn't touch any of your scores, Fluke. You must really like this game.
I love it.
Your scores were number, like, not just number one on my friends list, but like you were high on the global leaderboards too. So I couldn't touch you, but then I started kind of competing with Main Fan, who's also on my friends list, and kind of beat him on some songs and almost beat him on some other songs. So I don't know that I'll go back to it much. It was fine. I kind of, it also is like kind of like maybe sort of a modern day Richie's Plank experience where you can get socially, you can invite other people here in your home to say, hey, play this game, and you get to laugh at them and make fun of them because of, you know, the motions that they're doing near their face and the farty sounds of the trombone. So it's just more of a gag, I think, if anything, if I really go back to it.
I was saying something similar to a friend of mine who's got a Quest 3. I was recommending it to him because I said it's like, because you've got the pass-through mode now. So if you want to, you know, if you've got friends round and you want a silly party game where you can pass the headset round and not have them feel sort of, you know, disconnected from everybody else in the room, that mixed reality mode works really well. And yeah, it's just a good game. I don't know what it is with. Well, we'll get to music games later on. But I'd never classed myself as a music game sort of gamer, really. But I think this year might have changed things. I think it might be VR what's done it more than anything else. But yeah, I absolutely love that game. But Stranger Things as well, the last one on your list there. I've not played this. I absolutely love the TV show, but I've never played the game.
Yeah, and it was, I think it was in the winter Steam sale, or at the very least, I bought it at the same time because it released, I think, in early December for PC VR. And, you know, it's been out since maybe January of 24 on Quest. Oh, whatever. I may have all those dates wrong. But Yeah, I love Stranger Things. I tend to really want to get my stuff on PC VR. So I did the same thing with Trombone Champ. I got it on Steam, and I'm trying not to purchase things from Meta and have the game locked to just a Quest,
Yeah.
but also want the fidelity. So, but this game, like I love the IP, like you say, I love Stranger Things. It's taken them forever to come back with the final season.
Yeah.
This though is it kind of the I don't know, like I didn't find it very good. Like ambiance wise, it was good in the beginning, and visually, it's colorful and sharp, and it's very kind of a cartoony type aesthetic to it. So I like all that. But the actual gameplay, after about 30 minutes to an hour, just kind of got boring. Some of the locomotion that you do, so you play as Vecna, and he has the roots, the vines that he can kind of control, and so a lot of the motion's a little bit like Windlands, where you're able to just kind of swing with the vines, you grapple vines and kind of catapult yourself through the environment, and that part feels good, but the combat is a lot of um, telepathetically grabbing objects and flinging them, and it you are one of the core game mechanics are you kind of beat a creature like what they call them, demogorgons,
Yeah.
and then you kind of launch yourself through their mouths because you're going into their minds, and then that lets you relive some of Vecna's I forget what his real life character in the show is before he's Vecna, but you're kind of reliving some of his moments in the storyline. And when you going through those transition sequences, it's very difficult to understand where to go, and it's just kind of clunky, and it feels kind of filler. So I liked what they were doing, and if you're a fan of the show, it's probably worth checking out. Especially, I can see this game having sales, but it's also kind of it got stale for me. I don't know. I don't know that I see myself going back to it. But it wasn't terrible. And again, I love the setting, the ambiance, the visuals and stuff are pretty neat.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say it's one of those it came and went, and then I forgot about it. But yeah, maybe pick it up during a sale at some point. But it wouldn't be an episode of Recentered, I don't think, without having yet another Quest 3 headband to test. And Gary, why don't you take it away with this one?
Yeah, so we got sent, because I mentioned the Globular cluster, the PSVR 2 mod last time, and it's great. I said I'd probably talk about it again quickly this time. And yeah, I mean, I've been using it with GT7 and also Arken Age, which we'll discuss a little bit in a minute as well. But it's fantastic, the PSVR 2 mod. So this is one which they sent, well, to both me and you, Rog, as well, didn't they? The CMQ3 comfort mod for the Quest 3. This is a Halo mod. Now, I used to be a real big fan of Halo head straps on VR headsets, and over time I've just gone away from them a little bit, and I still feel that way. I think this is a good head strap, and it's comfortable. It's also sturdy. I've got that in the box with this. You get this like honeycomb kind of rubberized back plate as well, back panel, and that keeps it really, really sturdy. But I've just got this thing. I feel like with these Halo straps and putting like this really thin headset into this more bulky kind of strap sort of defeats the purpose a little bit in some ways. And I know that's probably a ridiculous thing to say, and a lot of people just want comfort and that's it, and I understand. But I still feel like I'm going to go back to my Elite strap, the Elite battery strap, the official one for the Quest 3 after this, except for the fact that this allows me to do something which I've not been able to do in that one, which is something you can do in all the Halo straps with the Quest 3, which is take off the facial interface. And I don't want to do that with games. I never ever play games like that except mixed reality games, or if I want to use it like the browser or more sort of media consumption kind of stuff with the Quest 3. It works really well for that, and I've really enjoyed using this head strap for that. But yeah, I still come back to this. issue of I feel like I'm putting on a helmet rather than just a lightweight headset. And I know I listen to reviews and I watch reviews on all these Halo straps, and people definitely prefer Bobo, or maybe this one if they give it a try as well, over the people generally prefer Halo straps. I just can't. I just don't, and that's all it comes down to. And I do think this one's good. I think it's comfortable. I've tried the Bobo. I've tried this. I put this on a par with the Bobo. I don't know about the battery side, how that translates to the Bobo. Maybe you can speak more about that, Rog, because the battery side of this is the other thing that's a little bit frustrating. It does the job. You put the battery in the... It's like a standard Anker battery that you can get off Amazon, so you can get replacements for this as well. And it slots in a cup at the back, and then you charge it. With the Elite battery strap, and I know it's much more expensive, but it's got like a pass-through, so you only have to charge the battery and it passes it through to the headset. This, you've got to take the battery out, charge it separately, put it back in. Then you think, well, I don't want to connect it straight up because then it's going to be draining the battery and charging the headset, but then the headset's going to run down. Because I never turn my headset off as well. That's the other thing. I always leave it on standby. And having a way to just have pass-through, so it's charging the battery and the head strap at the same time, is beneficial to me. And so I'm being quite negative on this. I do think it's a good head strap. I think it's comfortable without a question. I think it's really comfortable. And the advantage of this, like other Halo head straps, of not having that facial interface for certain things is a big deal as well. But I guess I'm just one of those people that prefers the non-Halo type head straps, really. What did you think, Rog?
Yeah. Well, I've still got it attached to mine. And like you say, this is the first time I've used Halo strap what actually works for me without a facial interface. It feels solid enough on my head. There was the Kiwi one I tried, and I could not use that without a facial interface. It wasn't stable enough for me. This is pretty much okay. The problem being is if you crane your neck up to look up at something, you can feel the front of the headset fall close to you, and I can feel like the HMD suddenly rest on my nose. You know, it's not flexible or anything really. It's just the front is heavy enough that if you look up, it will sort of just fall inwards slightly, and then maybe sort of like your eyebrows, your eyelashes start smudging the lenses or whatever. But I did play quite a bit of Trombone Champ without a facial interface, and that was really good for that. So I think for mixed reality and pass-through stuff, it's very, very good. Definitely. But saying that, Trombone Champ's about one of the few things, if the only thing, actually bother playing in mixed reality. And even then, it doesn't need to be played in mixed reality. I just like it in that mode.
Yeah.
So,
So I have a... Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go on. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to chime in on the whole facial interface thing. I've not tried this Globular cluster unit, but I had, initially when I got my Quest 3, I had the Elite battery strap like Gary. And that, I agree, that's probably the most straightforward, most comfortable for me. But I did switch to the Bobo because I like going interfaceless. And I think that may be because I, used the Quest Pro before the Quest 3. And so I'm interfaceless for everything. And I think he kind of like the pros outweighs the cons for me. I do kind of turn the lights down. I have an automation here in the basement where I just tell Google, dim the lights to VR mode, and it sets my lights to dim enough that the tracking and everything still works okay. I don't get that alert inside the headset.
I was about to ask if you were using an IR project, like an IR light, to help with the tracking. So if I turn my lights down, it just goes now. My Quest isn't happy.
Yeah, I mean, I don't turn them completely off, and that's the thing. And so there's still some light leakage, but honestly, like I've gotten so used to it, I think the brain has filtered it out. Like, the idea of going facial interfaceless, was a, like when the Quest Pro come out, and I was like, man, I can't get my head around that. Like, I don't want to do that. But I did, and then I think you adapt, and then to go back to a facial interface is the exact opposite, where it's like this is uncomfortable. It's pushing against my face. My face, it fogs up, and you don't have any of those problems when you go without an interface. So I'll be sticking with the Bobo. And Gary, with the Bobo, it used to be that you could pull the battery off of the head strap and then plug in the charging cable and then throw it back on the head strap, and it would charge. Then it would charge the headset and the battery, kind of like the Elite. But in the last week or so, mine has stopped doing that. I've come back to play to a dead Quest. And I don't know if maybe my batteries are dying, because some of these batteries go back to Quest 2 days. So I may have to just get some fresh batteries. But that's how I've always done it. I've kind of had the mix of both worlds, where I'm not managing batteries like you mentioned. Other than here lately.
The other thing, just quickly to mention in this video that I'm showing as well, the other aspect of this, which Roger's already spoke about on the podcast, I don't know how long ago, quite a long time ago now, but it's the F3 facial interfaces that you can get, this magnetic facial interfaces for the Quest as well. So this is like an interface that you can get. It's got magnetic points on it as well, and then you get sort of 3 interchangeable facial interfaces of different types, so you can just snap them on and snap them off, which is great for using in conjunction with this head strap, because you've got that Halo strap and you can use them without the facial interface. And then there's also this rubberized one as well, which works good. The thing is, and this is something I think you mentioned as well, Rog, when I use that with this head strap, this CMQ3 head strap, it reduces the field of view down. One thing I'll say is, when I find that when I went back to the Elite strap and used it didn't really reduce the field of view down. Not that I could notice anyway. For some of them, and each one is different, because you've got these 3 different materials that are on this gasket. So, I think I like the option to just snap off these different kinds of facial interfaces as well. I do like that option, but I don't know if I necessarily recommend it or say it's like a compulsory or anything like that. But it's a nice option to have if you've got different things.
Yeah, they sent me one ages back, I think before it was officially released, and because I did send some feedback about the nose gap, and they re-engineered the nose gap, which was really good. But overall, I just couldn't quite get used to it, and I gave it to Lee, and his comment on it was, like you've just said, it reduced the field of view too much for him, which is a bit weird, because you can take out those individual pieces, can't you, to bring it closer?
Yeah, it's difficult to get the fit quite right, at least with the Halo head strap. That's what I found. It's not like it reduced it hugely for me, and when I went back to the Elite strap, and it was pretty much identical from what I could see with some of them. This is the difference. There's one facial interface that you get, this sort of silicon facial interface, which is a soft rubber like on the PSVR 2. You have to use that with the Halo strap, because it doesn't rest on your face in that same way. So there's that as well. That doesn't come in the traditional package. That's a separate item that you can purchase separately as well. So, but that's it. Anyway, I think it's a good head strap for people that like Halo straps. That's really all I'll say, I suppose. Yeah,
I think for the foreseeable future, I'm going to keep on using it. When I do need a facial interface on, I've actually had to go back to my original Quest 3 interface, because the third-party one, which I think it's an AMVR one I've been using with an old VR cover, Velcro, pleather bit slapped onto that, it doesn't fit. It's the bit what rests against your sort of like your head, against your brow, is too thick to fit with this mod. So I've had to go back to the Quest one, and even then, it only feels like it only just fits in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like it. I nearly went back to the Kiwi head strap I was using, but I think for now I'll stick with it, because I do like being able to take that facial interface off and not use a facial interface. The only thing I will ask, Gary, is on your video, did you bother putting on the padded headband? You're not using the padded one?
No, I didn't use. I did use the padded one, and then I swapped it for the non-padded one. I felt, I don't know. I felt like it just felt a bit more secure for some reason, and maybe that was just a placebo. I'm not entirely sure about that, but yeah, I did initially go for the padded one, then I swapped it over to this one and just stuck with that, really.
It's the thing with all that we say time and time again, though, don't we? It's such a personal preference with this thing, with these sorts of things. With what we like. headphones, headbands, facial interfaces. What works for somebody just might not work for somebody else. So you've got to try them. So Amazon is your friend, I think, definitely for that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So moving on to anyway, sort of new games, and this is got to stress this is first impressions only. This is Arken Age, which is coming out on PC and PSVR 2. Is it on the 16th? It's soon.
Yeah, it's soon.
I think it's on the 16th. And this is by Vitruvius Games. They kindly sent us early access to this. So I think we've both been playing it. Have you played PC and PSVR 2, Gary, or just the PSVR 2 one?
Briefly PC first. I just went into the tutorial, which we can talk about in a second. But then I went on to PSVR 2 and played through pretty much. Well, I played up to the end point of where we can discuss at the moment as well. So they've put a limit on what you can discuss on this first impression. So that's where I am.
Yeah, so I played through on PSVR 2 as well, and it's very hard to talk about sort of like first impressions without really making it sound like a review.
I know. Well, the thing is, we've only played up until the point where we can talk about. So that's really all we can. We're not giving anything away. Yeah.
And I think my first impression was, whoa. I really liked it as soon as I jumped in. It was visually, it's like ooh, this is pretty. And I was playing it on the PSVR 2 mode at 90 hertz because you get you can have a 90 hertz option or a 120 or a 60 reprojected to 120 option, and it even tells you the resolutions which those different options run in as well.
Yeah. And
the 60 sort of 60 FPS reprojected one. It's like 4,000 by 4,000 and something. It's a big res for a PSVR 2 game. It is noticeably lower on the 90 hertz mode, but in all honesty, I'm forgetting how to speak again. In all honesty, the difference between them I didn't think was that massive from a resolution point of view, although maybe the frame rate was just making up for that because it does look so much better at 90 hertz in my eyes. It just gets rid of that smear, the double image, the reprojection.
Yeah,
it just looked nicer.
I'll just mention this here while we talk about that. But yeah, I think I've only played it on the 90 hertz mode anyway, and I think more than anything, because it's a very bright game, and I think more than anything, it highlights the persistence issues on PSVR 2 more than anything else when I'm playing on that, because it's great. I love the 90 hertz mode, the native frame rate, and the game looks great. It looks sharp enough to me, but you do get that that motion clarity, that persistence blur very slightly still, and that's. Yeah. I'm not going to say very many negative things about this game, but that's the one thing, and it's not really a fault of the game itself, I suppose.
No, that's it. It's the persistence of the panel on PSVR 2 is there. It is noticeable. It doesn't really bother me, in all honesty. But then again, it's like the Miura on PSVR 2 doesn't bother me either, and I couldn't stand it on PSVR 1. And people still really whine about the Miura on PSVR 2, and it's like I just don't see it that much. And when I do see it, it's not distracting. So
I didn't see it in this at all. Ever,
no, actually, once. No. I don't recall seeing any, to be honest, either. No, I didn't. But yeah, so you start off, and there's a long tutorial. My video footage for the tutorial when I first went through it, and when I first tried it, I did play it on hard. It's a mistake. I will say the first time you play this game, if you want a good time, play it on normal. Hard is or brutal, whatever they call the difficulty. It is brutal. And it took like over 40 minutes to go through the tutorial.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so much faster the second time round because you can just rip through it. You know what you're doing. And that's one of my main, if I've got any complaints, that's one of my main complaints, because me and Lee always go on about this. If you're going to have tutorials in a game, embed the tutorial into the actual start of the game and unfold, teach how you're playing the game as you are playing the game. Where with this, there's literally a console, and it's like a dial, isn't there? And you have to go through them one by one, steps of the tutorial. So by the time you've finished it, you've had all this information thrown at you. Then you get out onto the first level, and you suddenly think, how do you do that again?
That's exactly one of the things I was going to say. Yeah, they dump all of this information. They basically dump every single game, and there's a lot of game mechanics in this as well. And they dump it all on you in one lump at the beginning of the game, and then you think, okay, I've remembered some of it, but it would be better if they could embed it, like you say, into the game. But that was something that I thought is probably something that's going to turn some people off at the beginning. And once you get through it, and you've got past all of that stuff, because you see that dial and you think, okay, so surely then they're going to make me work through all of this in one go. And that's exactly what they do. And it's like, there's probably about, I know, it's like a clock. It's like 12 stages of this tutorial, and each one, they throw a load of information at you. So, I mean, get past that and you probably have a better time once you're past that.
Yeah. But yeah, the first time I tried playing it, I had it on the hardest setting. I walked out into the first area, and the first NPC what came along slaughtered me. I went outside, it did it again and again and again, to the point that I'd not got any shields because they were all on the floor next to where I died. And, so I managed to struggle my way through it. And then at one point, I loaded the game back in, and I turned my save game back down to normal, and I was still struggling. So I'm not entirely convinced that works. It gives you, you can turn your save game down to a different difficulty level. I'm not entirely sure that works at all. I have since played it on easy and normal, and in all honesty, normal's fine. I would say for the first time you play this, play it on normal, or else you might, if you're like me, you'll struggle with it. But yeah, from what I played, I did enjoy it. I'm not sure how linear this game's going to be. Like I say, I don't like you, Gary. I only played it through to that first part where they said don't show any footage beyond this point.
Yeah.
So I stopped there anyway, so I didn't say anything by accident. But if you can scroll, there's a teleporter you can go into, so you can go back to different areas if you want. If you want to go back, and there are collectibles you can find, so you can go back and collect them if you missed them. And you can scroll the map though, and it just scrolls vertically, and it's like one long column. And I'm thinking, is this just like, do you just keep going up the map from area to area to area? It seemed very linear in that regard. But the actual moment-to-moment thing of actually being in, it's almost like a massive courtyard, isn't it? Like a castle courtyard sort of thing.
Each area is like it feels like each area that you progress to is a big arena. And you have to do various tasks in that arena and kill all the enemies. That seems to be what the game is at the moment. So not to like build it up or hype it up too much. Go in thinking that's all it is, because that's all I've experienced so far.
That's all we've that exactly. We don't know what comes after that.
Yeah.
But I was enjoying the moment-to-moment stuff of finding little hidden areas.
Yes,
and seeing something and thinking, how on earth do I get to that? And then figuring it out and managing to climb up the right bit or dive off into the water and go under a tunnel or whatever. And I've enjoyed what I've played so far, and I will definitely be going back and playing it. It is good. The footage we are showing, this is the PSVR 2 version, by the way, in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah.
This was recorded. I did go back in and actually play this at 60 to 120 just to get some smooth video footage. Because it looked a little bit choppy when you record at 90. So but it does look good. It does seem good.
It seems very good. Yeah, I think so you've got these enemies, you've got different weapons, you've got a sword, you've got these different types of guns as well, so you can take on the enemies in different ways. The AI seems, I think when you're engaged in combat, it's quite simple. But they also, you notice, like when they're in the distance, they're climbing up buildings, they're dodging behind cover, and they'll move from one cover to another as well, and stuff like this, and sort of slide it behind cover. They're doing some stuff which is quite good. To be honest, this game, and the thing is, we've only played so much of it, so I'm trying I don't want to hype it up too much, but to me, so far from what I've played, if I was to play this much of this game and then play this much of Metro or Behemoth or any of the other big games that came out last year, this would be the one that I would rank highest so far. I think this is fantastic so far, and I absolutely love it. And like I say, not to hype it up too much, it's an arena. You're going from one arena to the next. So it's, in terms of like the setting and stuff, it's quite simple, but the number of different things that are going on in this and the number of gameplay mechanics, I mean, I can't keep track of everything, to be honest. So you could really go in quite deep with this, because you're collecting all of these things. I don't know necessarily why I'm collecting them even at this stage.
This is the problem as well, because it dumps a load of exposition on you at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
And then it throws you into the tutorial. I can't remember what the storyline is.
I don't know the story. That's the thing. That's the other thing I was going to say. Yeah, the story's a bit of a it's all over. Well, I don't know if it's all over the place or not because I'm just not following it at this moment in time. Fortunately,
the game too much at you.
Yeah, it does. It throws too much at you at the beginning. Fortunately, the gameplay is good enough that I'm not caring too much about that. But I'm hoping as you progress through, it introduces other stuff beyond what we're seeing at this early stage. I hope it's not just this all the way through, in spite of how deep the mechanics are and in spite of all the things that you can upgrade and change and stuff. It's still, when you boil it down, it's still basically an arena that you're clearing enemies out of. But it does it in a really good way. And the final thing I'll say is, this has come from Vitruvius that did, I think it was Merville's, then they did Shadow Legend, which I really enjoyed. But it still felt very indie. This one is a massive step up from, well, Shadow Legend was a massive step up from Merville's. This is, in my opinion, a massive step up from Shadow Legend as well. This is probably as close to a AAA game by a non-AAA studio that I think I've ever experienced. This is, I don't want to say it's AAA, although I'm tempted to be honest, because there's certain things that really feel well done in this. So yeah,
it's what's the term, triple I.
Yes,
indie,
yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, like you're saying with the NPCs and stuff. Well, I wasn't quite. I mean, I thought the melee combat sort of, it's fine, it's okay, it works, it does a good enough job. I don't think it's the best. I think I prefer the combat in Behemoth, in all honesty, the melee combat. But this does do more. Like you're saying, the enemy characters, if you shoot one at a distance, it'll return fire with you. It'll return fire at you, work its way up to you, and then when it gets close, it'll ditch its weapon, ditch its gun, and it'll pull out a shield and a sword as well.
Yeah.
So you know, it's. Yeah, it is good in that respect with some of the things it does. But yes, I do need to play more. But it's a nice looking game. There's no doubt about that. And performance as well. Performance is flawless.
Oh, on PSVR 2, there's no drops at all. It runs great.
On PSVR 2.
Even on PC.
In both modes.
Yeah, even on PC, on my system, I could get it running, barely any stutters as well. And it looked great on there as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, definitely look out for this one. I'm sure the reviews will be hitting on the release date, but I don't think many people are going to be disappointed with this.
No way. And
it's a good one.
Let just to finish off, Roger, then, because I said, like, out of the big games that came out last year, the Metro, the Behemoth, and Batman and stuff, how would you rate this? Like the first part of this game compared to those, how would you put it?
Preferred it to Metro.
Yeah.
If I'd have played this at exactly the same time as Batman, when Batman released, I'd have probably have had a better time with this. Since Batman's been, I don't know, Batman annoys me because of the fact they didn't get, it was too rough at launch.
Yeah.
There's things I like about this that I prefer. I don't know whether I'd take this or Behemoth. I think I might like Behemoth. I like Behemoth better because of the melee combat. I think it's better. I just think it's better.
Yeah, you might be right on that. Thinking about it, yeah.
But this, obviously, you get the gun combat as well. So I feel it deserves a place up there with those games. In amongst that conversation.
Easily, yeah. The thing we've not mentioned as well, the climbing mechanic in this is fantastic. It feels great to do climbing. Yes. And you can climb really quickly. You can traverse these levels. The way you get your pickaxes out, though, you basically just gesture your arms, you flick your wrist upwards, they appear, and then you hold the grip buttons, and your pickaxes are there, and you just climb up. That's really good. The one thing I will say that I've not seen done in any other game. There's loads of options on this game. You go into the options. There's a lot. I think they've left some PC options in there on the current build in the PSVR 1 because they're all greyed out. But there's graphics options in there. I'm thinking they probably shouldn't be there. But there's an option where instead of having to click in the grip button on the PSVR 2 controllers, you can turn the option on or even have it hybrid, where all you have to do is touch them and it's capacitive. Yeah.
So you don't have to hold those buttons in all the time, and you can have it so you don't even have to click them in once. You can just touch them, and there's even a bar. You put your middle finger on the grip button, and there's a meter showing you how much you are touching that grip button. I've never seen that done before either.
No. They've covered everything in terms of VR options in that menu as well. So you've got gun angle, sword angle. You've not just got angle. You've also got the tilt of it as well, like so you got the pitch, and then you've got the yaw angle of the gun as well. You can change so many things in this. And I think this is what this developer has done in the past in Shadow Legend. This is what impressed us with Shadow Legend as well.
Yeah.
Even though that felt far more indie, that had a lot of VR kind of stuff. The thing is, the developer understands VR to a point of it's unbelievable, really, where all these things that people ask for in VR games, this developer seems to have done it anyway. So.
The option screen in this game should be a study for anybody else who's making a VR game at the moment.
Yeah,
you need to go in and see what options are in there, and then just copy them.
Yeah,
you can't fault the options at all.
Yeah,
but that's Arken Age 16th, I think it's out, and I'll say check out the reviews, but I don't think you'll be disappointed with it.
So I think it's interesting. I was quiet because I've not played this at all, and I'll just say, as you know, I normally listen to your shows, and I don't know how to say this. It's not being critical. I'm being critical about being critical.
No, go for it.
Because I did the same thing, in the VR Roundtable days, where it was like we would talk about a game, and it was like we felt like we had to like talk about the negative stuff, probably a little bit too much. Gary, I think I know what you're talking about, and I think you guys did that with all, we'll call it the main big releases that were at the end of 2024. But both of you all have been glowing about this game and have not said anything negative. While conversely, you're having a hard time slotting it above Batman or slotting it above Behemoth. So I just wanted to call attention to that because that is unusual.
The problem is as well, we've played how much have we played of this? An hour, because we didn't want to go past the point where, we might get the problem. That's the problem. It's a preview. We might get all the way through the game and think, It
could be that this. One of my concerns is that if this is just you're going from arena to arena for the rest of the game, literally doing exactly what we've done in the past ones, it might drag on a little bit. Not that I'm not, there's almost an element of it's that fun to do it anyway that I'm sort of okay with that, but that would probably be a criticism of it.
Yeah.
And that could also be a criticism of Behemoth as well. And I'm not sure I'd put Behemoth ahead of this, other than what Rog said in terms of the melee combat. I guess when I think about it, you're probably right on that aspect. Like, I agree with you on that, yeah.
Yeah, I think for most people, I think the actual game, the overall gameplay in this, I think more people will like this than Behemoth. But it's that mechanic, the fighting in Behemoth, I do prefer. It's the problem with all the other games, all those big games what came out at the end of last year. There were flaws. There was so much what annoyed me about each of them. I think that there were problems or issues or something didn't work. Probably less so with Behemoth by the time we played it. But Batman, it's like I could never get over that the amount of problems that game gave me. And as good as a game it is, it's just it's a bugbear. I can't let go. The only actually there is a criticism I've got with this. The batteries and the shield need swapping over. Because you reach over your left shoulder to grab a battery to plug into your sword or into your gun, whatever, or you can do like a quick reload as well. But when you want to get a shield, you have to press a button on your controller.
Yeah.
The shield appears in front of you, and then you grab the shield. And until you've got the muscle memory down to doing that, it's awkward at the beginning. It'd be so much easier to reach over my left shoulder to grab the shield while my right hand was grabbing the sword, and I could do that in one fluid, smooth movement. Where at the moment, my right hand goes to grab the sword, then my left hand goes, where's the shield? Oh yeah, it's on that button. I find myself stopping. Which button was it? That button. Grab the shield, then pull the sword out. It's not smooth. Where the amount of times you need to use a battery is, unless you're using guns a lot, the battery appearing should be on a button rather than over your shoulder. Especially considering you can just put your gun over your shoulder to reload anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. You don't even need to get the batteries out. You can just put your gun over your shoulder and it reloads for you.
That needs swapping around. Get rid of the battery from your shoulder, put that on the button, put the shield over your left shoulder, please. Combat would be a lot better. Especially because you'll find yourself swapping between your guns and your shield and a sword as well. And you need to be able to do that more smoothly than you can do at the moment. But,
yeah.
But yeah, that's Arken Age. Next up, Action Hero. So this is a super hot type game, and I think you've probably played it a bit more than me, Gary. I did actually manage to get this and jump into it. Yeah. It made my legs ache. Yeah.
So you say super hot type game. This is basically super hot with different graphics.
Well,
I mean, that's basically what it is. And like unashamedly so. Super hot's a great game. This is a great game, and it's just done in a different way. It's got a different theme to it, but that's pretty much it, because gameplay-wise, it's identical. It's identical to Super Hot. That's what it is. And so it's done in this way where you're playing through these different scenes of different movies, and you just have to get through the scene. So you're like an action hero in this movie. You're being told by the director, you're in this scene now. And it's all sort of window dressing for what is essentially just Super Hot. That's all it is, which is great. I love Super Hot, and I love this. I think they've mimicked it perfectly, and I don't even mind because I want more Super Hot, and this is sort of delivering it in a really good way. It's not like it's any worse than Super Hot. I'd put it on a par, if not slightly more interesting than Super Hot in the way they're doing this, because they've got all these different themes, all these different movies that you're playing through. So they've sort of took it one step further, but it is essentially gameplay wise Super Hot, and I love it. I think it's great.
It is very good. I made the mistake of sort of like the first time I tried it, I don't know if I'd been sat down watching TV for a few hours. I thought, I need to check that out, and then just started playing it. And so I went from like being totally passive and sat down to suddenly being very active. And I played it for an hour and thought, it's really good. The following day, my legs were all over the place.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's that super hot style game, and you'll find yourself crouching or reaching and holding a pose so time's not moving, and sort of slowly doing this sort of like dance against the enemies that are coming towards you. I'm not sure if it's as how do I put this? With Super Hot, it always felt like I could sort of go at a level in my own way and then try a different variation. Maybe I'm not remembering it right. It's so many years since I played Super Hot. The levels, they all seemed like they were designed to be completed in a certain way.
I get what you mean. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because they give you limited. I think Super Hot gave you maybe more options at the beginning. Like you'll have different weapons scattered around you.
Yeah.
This at least at the beginning. I've played through the first movie, and I've played through the first two. No, I've not all the way through the second one. So what I'm showing here on this video is the first one. Yeah. But yeah, you get limited options at the beginning. Really, and I suppose that's orchestrating how you play through the rest of the level based on those options. And the other thing, what you were alluding to, so you do have to like crouch down and stuff like that, but you also need a fair bit of room. One of the parts in this video which has just gone past, where you've got this boulder that goes past, you need to move, and there's others in like laser sections as well, where you need to literally move in your play space away from these things. And I was struggling. You can see my Guardian popping up on this video because I can't get far enough away to get out of the way of this boulder or these lasers and stuff. So you do need a little bit of room to do that as well. But
it's more the horizontal movement. It's like sidestepping left and right to avoid stuff. It's as long as you've got enough room to sort your left and right, you should be okay.
Yeah.
The thing I think it does more than Super Hot did is the environmental stuff that you have to avoid. It definitely goes big on that. Like you say, with the boulders, or something will come crashing through and the debris will come flying at you, so you're dodging under the debris while you're avoiding incoming fire as well. So it definitely plays more into the environmental side of stuff, from what I remember, compared to Super Hot anyway. As I say, it's a long time since I played Super Hot. But yeah, if you want in a Super Hot style game, this is absolutely it. And it's a lot more colourful and varied.
And yeah, very well done as well. I
Oh yeah,
can't knock it at all. I think
no,
it's great if you like Super Hot.
If you want that game, it's a thumbs up. If you want that style game, yeah, thumbs up.
You played Super Hot though, didn't you, Steve? You played through that.
Oh yeah. That was back in the day. Super Hot was a must play.
It was like it was what got recommended on everything, really, wasn't it? Back in the day.
Yeah. Everybody were playing that and Job Simulator, weren't they, for some reason? But on to the next one, and I doth protest I am not a Jolly Roger. This is Pirates VR. So we, again, got a key for this. You've played this more than I did, Gary. I did manage to jump into it earlier on. I did have a bit of an issue with it, but I'll, take it away.
Well, I'll just be very quick. If you want to see some brief impressions on this, on the first area of this, then go over to my channel and watch the video. But I'll just go through the first section of it. I felt, and I think the expectation around this was it was going to be a bit more survival based. I've seen comments go for that, and say those kinds of things. And I guess I sort of agree. It's quite linear at the beginning. I don't know if it opens up after that. But you're going through the tutorial area is you're just following this parrot around and it teaches you all the mechanics, and it's quite linear. You just have to go through it in a certain order and do it. It looks good enough. On my system, I had to lower settings down to the point of things just didn't look as great as I knew they could. Mainfam commented on my video actually to say that it looked better on his system because he's got a 4090 and he could ramp up the settings more. But it just looked a little bit washed out. There was aliasing issues as well. But I think I think Lee said this in our Discord. There's room for, if somebody was to really go and get a big budget for a pirate type game like this in VR and really push it and make it, I hesitate to say open world, but something a little bit more open would be. Yeah. I think there's a massive market for that kind of stuff because you get hints of it in this. And I just feel like the budget wasn't quite there with this. It's like this cat panther thing that's attacking me. It just doesn't look great. It feels indie, and then other sections look quite good. And I'm progressing through it. I'm thinking I'm having an okay time in this. I'm going through the motions. It's very linear and that kind of stuff. And it looks good enough, even on the lower settings. You've got a lot of popping. You've got a lot of aliasing issues, but it still looks okay. And I was having a good enough time, but it's just, I feel like the budget is just not there to quite pull this off at the moment. But it's one that I was looking forward to, and to be brutally honest, I'm a little bit disappointed by it, having played it. That's the thing, because So
I will say, have you gone back in? Because when you recorded this, you recorded it at 120 hertz, didn't you? So you could get nice 60 FPS capture.
Yeah.
When I went in, I'd accidentally left my virtual desktop at 120 as well, and I was getting judder and stutter and whatever, and I hit my thumbsticks. I'm like, 120 FPS. Okay. So I went back out, knocked it down to 72, actually bumped the res up a level in virtual desktop,
right?
And I put the settings to high as well, and it was fine.
Okay, yeah,
absolutely fine. But at 120, I was struggling.
Yeah, I should probably. So, complete transparency, what I was doing, I was running at 120, but then I locked it at 60 in virtual desktop just to get the footage. That was basically what I did. Okay. Because when I ran it at 120, it was sort of dipping in and out. Not dipping in and out. It was basically most of the time in 60 and then sort of juddering as it made that transition. So, yeah, you're probably right. If I've dropped it down to 72 or something like that, I could probably get it running better and get a better image quality on my system. It depends, really. Yeah. I'm not sure. So, yeah, that's something to point out.
I thought it looked okay. I wasn't sort of looking at it thinking, "Oh, that's not good."
Did you get the pop in? Like I did on my video? That was the main thing, really.
Not that I can recall, but I'll say I had everything set to high. There is an ultra setting. I didn't try that.
Yeah.
So maybe that helped. This bit was the one where you slide, where you slide down the rope.
Yeah.
Right. Now, in all honesty, because I literally went in for 10 minutes before I had my lunch earlier today, so I literally can't comment on the gameplay really. But I slid down the rope, dropped off, and I didn't know what to do. I literally got stuck. I was looking around, couldn't see the parrot. Dropped back down, ran around, climbed up the cliff again. Nope. Tried climbing up something, fell off, went back round, climbed up, fell off a third time, and it's just as I was falling off the rock for the third time, I saw the parrot in the distance, and at that point I went, I can't be bothered, because look, I've not had anything to eat all day. I was wanting my dinner.
Excuses.
So I was getting a bit grumpy.
Yeah.
So I sort of do want to go back into it, but I think I'll wait maybe till it's launched, till we've got the sort of like launch day patches sorted.
Yeah.
It was a bit iffy.
Sounds like you'd make a terrible pirate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite probably.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
Rocks.
Climbing. I was just going to say there's a lot of climbing, at least at the beginning of this game. Maybe it's not the same all the way through.
On your video, you mentioned that you say, "Oh, am I not very good at climbing or whatever?" The climbing mechanics need tweaking.
Yeah,
it's not you. It's the climbing mechanics. You have to push the grip buttons in too far for it to register, and then I think you have to let go too much for it to register that you've let go.
Yeah.
Rather than it just sort of being a toggle when it hits the halfway mark. And I found myself sort of almost stuttering with the hand to let. I was having to sort of mentally think, have I let go of that controller now? Yes, then reach across, let go. And it was, so yeah, there's something that needs tweaking with the climbing. It's not broken by any stretch of the imagination. It works, but there's just something that needs changing.
Main fan did just say as well, he didn't have pop-in on his, and I assume he was running at high. But, you know, the difference then between running at high and medium, which is what I was running on, the pop-in was blatant. You can see it on my video, the amount of pop-in, especially when you're underwater. So the difference in settings going from medium to high does seem to make a big difference on that. And he also said, I liked it enough to go back in. And I did like it enough to do that. It's not like I'm going to stop playing or anything. I don't want it to come across like that, because you go out on this beach area and then you go into these cave areas. And I've seen a little bit more progress from other videos where you've got these puzzles and things like that beyond that, which seemed quite interesting as well. So, yeah, it's not that I don't want to play this. It's I think my expectations were a little bit higher than it actually turned out to be. I guess that's where I fall on it.
Yeah. Main fan says that the climbing is way better than in Behemoth for him.
Yeah,
I mean, I suppose I mean, you can't be right all the time, main fan.
I know what he means though, because there's something weird with the climbing in Behemoth, because when you it's like it doesn't register the first anchor point or something. If you're still, I don't know how to describe it. It just felt a little bit off to me, the climbing in Behemoth as well.
No, I definitely had more of an issue with climbing in this. I'm gonna say it's that thing where I was having to consciously think how much I'd pressed the grip button on the touch controller to whether it was just odd. Yeah, okay, yeah. Main fantasy again. The climbing in Behemoth too slow. I do get that, because there is sort of some physics going off, isn't there? So yeah, I do prefer If they got the grip right on this, I think it would be better. But at the moment, there's just something that needs changing that I was getting slightly annoyed at.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's it.
I mean, that's it. It might be okay. I do want to have a look at it again. Okay, so everybody's done their top games of 2024, etc., and everything. And so we're going to do ours. But we will point out, we're not saying these are the best games of 2024, or the game of the year or anything. These are just personal preferences, our personal favourites. We've not got together and said this is the game of the year or anything like that. So we'll go through them one at a time and
go
what's
to
what.
Steve first, because he's not been able to comment on the last couple of games and stuff. So yeah.
Well, Steve's got two lists, hasn't he? Steve's got a list.
Yeah, he's got a special
VR titles. And you...
well, I really don't like. Are we just going to list it and move on? Well, just talk about them.
Talk about them.
Just pick your first one. Pick one.
So it's a little bit of a caveat, because when Gary said, "Hey, you want to join us for this episode? We're going to go over our top games," and I said, "Well, I viewed 2024 as having kind of the big releases towards the end of the year: the Batman, the Metro, the Alien, and the Behemoth." Well, I haven't played any of them, and the reason I haven't played any of them is because since I quit being a podcaster, content creator, I wait for things to go on sale. It's how I can afford my GPUs. And so I haven't played any. None of those games were on sale for the Steam Winter Sale.
Yeah.
So this winter sale, I actually went back and was able to pick up the stuff from earlier in the year. So my number one game is Subside. And it's not much of a game. It's more of a, I guess, sort of an experience. And I love being in the water in VR. You know, one of my all-time favorites is Subnautica.
Yeah.
You surprised me, Scuba Steve.
Yeah, and so anytime a game can get me in the water and make me feel like I'm snorkeling or scuba diving or something, yeah, I'm all about that. So and this game graphically just looks really good. You know, it gives you a purpose. You're not just in an environment. You know, you do have to figure out how to, I guess, complete the biome or the particular. I don't want to call it a level or a stage, but you know, you gotta get through it, and you gotta find enough stuff on the ocean floor. And so yeah, it was a good experience. It's not too terribly expensive. I don't know what its normal price is, and hell, I don't even remember what I paid for it exactly. But it can give you something that only VR can give you, I think, in terms of a feeling and the weightlessness of moving through the water. So it got my number one.
I've only played the demo of this. The only thing, I know Virtual Strangers brought this up, and I don't want to bash anybody really, but I directly messaged the dev about this, and like along with Virtual Strangers as well, it just didn't bother replying. Didn't even send, not so much as a "I'm sorry, I'm not sending any more keys out." It didn't bother getting back, and that just sort of rubbed me up the wrong way a bit. I sort of happily bought it because I did like the look of it. I liked the Kayak VR, which really isn't a game either, but it's graphically nice, and it's nice to spend time in that. But yeah, didn't get a reply, and I thought, sod it, so I never bothered buying it. I do want to play it at some point, but it's definitely on my I'll buy it when it's on sale now.
I played the demo of it, and it looks great. And like I say, Steve, there's stuff to do in there as well. It's not like a Blue or something like that. There's things to do. I've not picked it up. The reason is I just don't know if I'm going to spend enough time in there. I like the idea of it as an experience, and I like it as like demo material, but I don't know if I'm really going to spend hours in this thing. Although it's nice to have something like this as an option to just dip into now and again. It is like the Blue in that sense, because the Blue is hardly anything. You know, it's just these few minute experiences, and yet I've spent hours and hours in there over the years. So this could be another one of those, I suppose, in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It scratches a very similar kind of itch as the Blue, but with more purpose.
Yeah.
Right? You have to find the collectibles. You find these coins that are kind of just scattered throughout the level. Again, I don't have a better word for it other than level. And then you can you use those coins to unlock equipment. Like, you know, you have to swim with the motion controllers, and you can unlock more of a less laborious way to swim. You know, you unlock different fins and things like that. So yeah, I think you kind of hit it there, Gary. Like the Blue with more purpose is really what I would call this.
Yeah. Yeah. Gorgeous looking game though. You can't deny that.
Yeah,
definitely. Gary, what's your first pick?
Okay. What is my first pick? So yeah, this is a pretty obvious one really. Batman, Arkham Shadow. This is one of the big games that came out last year. It was difficult for me to not choose this one. This was by far the one I enjoyed the most. I think the game is fantastic. It's running natively on a Quest 3 and looking as good as it does. There was and you mentioned this, Rog. Well, we both noticed this when it first came out, and this is probably going to lead into your discussion on this as well, but it had a few bugs initially, and also there was this issue with the hands. Even though it was running at 72 frames per second, the hands looked like they were juddering and stuff like that initially. They seem to have solved all of that now anyway. I did go back in. So there were a few things wrong with it initially, but that didn't stop me from enjoying it and playing through it pretty quickly, really. I think the story is really good as well. This is the thing. I'm not a massive Arkham fan. As I mentioned last time, I played a little bit of them, but the story got me in this. I liked all aspects of it. I felt the pacing was really good all the way through. Even the slower parts in the prison I really enjoyed. And except the only thing I'll say is towards the end of it, that the padding, it does feel like it's padded slightly towards the end of going through these same areas. And oh, look, we've got a new wave of enemies to kill now, even though you've already killed some there, which is fine because I enjoyed the combat in this as well. And that was my main concern going in. So the things which... One of my main concerns is the combat, because I don't like it being too orchestrated. And I said it when we spoke about this originally, I don't want this to be the template of all VR games going forward. But in this game, it works really well. It is sort of like orchestrated to a certain extent, but I'm sort of okay with it in this game. And yeah, it's a great game. I love it. Yeah.
I thought the combat in this was one of the best things about it. I just thought it worked really well. Like you said, I was worried as well about, is it going to be a bit too Beat Saber-like, or rhythm based? But I thought it just, for actual sort of like hand-to-hand sort of like without using weapons sort of melee combat, it's one of my favourites in that regard. I got fed up with is it Matches Malone? The character you play. Going through the prison thing, fetch quest, boring. Sorry. That was bad. I just wanted to be Batman.
That's exactly...
When you matches, you're walking through to different areas, going back and forward, fetching stuff for people, and the amount of loading doors you go through is just ridiculous.
Yeah, no,
it's
I can understand that. A main fan does complain about that as well on his podcast, and I don't agree. That's really well I thought. I felt like the pacing in it worked really well, having those quieter moments where you're going around the prison. I think the thing is, that aspect of the story was just interesting to me, where you're seeing like Harley Quinn and stuff. I don't know, it's not spoilers, is it, to mention?
No, she's in the trailer.
Yeah. So, but all of these little lore elements, and the fact is, I just feel like if I was Batman all the time in this game, that would just get too repetitive as well. So in terms of pacing, I disagree. I think that worked for me. Maybe it was a little bit too much of the prison. Maybe I'll go that far, but I still really enjoyed that aspect anyway.
Yeah. I really like the Batman. When you're Batman, brilliant. I really enjoyed that. It just gave you had more of a sense of freedom as well. When you're outside in the courtyards and stuff, and being able to go from sort of like rooftop to rooftop and swoop down into the courtyard and attack stuff, and then or the cave sections as well. It's just there was a great sense of exploration, I thought. But when you're in the prison section, when you match as Malone, I just didn't like that at all. It was one of Lee's picks actually as well. We'll just mention that. He just said just for the feel of being Batman more than anything, it was one of his picks. Sorry, Steve, go on.
It's probably of the late year releases, it's the one I'm most interested in, but I'm stubborn and holding out some kind of weird hope that it may come to PC. What do you guys put the chances of that? 5%, 30%, like 90%? Like it seems like it was a big budget development.
Yeah, but we've seen it before, haven't we? Where games come out on Quest and we thought, oh yeah, Quest exclusive, and then 6 months later, all of a sudden, whoa, PC, what's going on? I don't know. Camouflage. Who owns Camouflage? Are they a Meta?
They're Meta, yeah. They're owned by Meta now. Yeah.
They're actually owned by Meta. That's a yeah. That could be a sticking point then.
Yeah. If I ever get hard up and don't have anything to play, and maybe I'll pick it up then. I want to play it. I just kind of really want it on PC.
Yeah, it is good, and visually as well for a Quest game, it is very good. I don't know. There were so many problems at launch. And I can't let go of that for some reason.
Yeah.
So what have I got? Right. Okay. So one of my first pick, in no particular order, I've got Into Black, which I've been playing through with a friend of mine on weekend mornings, and this just surprised me. I know we played, didn't we, Gary, with Lee on the beta version for an hour or so, and there was some issues there, especially to do with frame rate, and then the full game came out and they'd fixed it, which I wasn't expecting at all. And it's one of those games, it gives you a good sense of exploration. When you're playing in co-op, it's just brilliant. And it's not okay. It doesn't look like a PC game, but there's points in it. Every now and again, you'll get to a point where you'll get to a cavern or something big, massive area will open up in front of you, and it gives you that moment of this is on quest, And it just kept doing that every now and again, and it's just a really good game. It scratches that itch of collecting and mining stuff, coupled with exploration, coupled with combat, coupled with co-op, coupled with Gary killing you when you're not looking. It was just a great game. It scratched just ticked a lot of boxes for me. I thought it was really good. Lee's got this on his list as well. And if you're a Quest gamer and you want a good co-op game with a good story as well, absolute proper recommendation. It was a surprise, one of the big surprises for me.
Just don't go in with me because I'll probably shoot you in the back several times. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Steve, do you want to pick another one?
Someone posted in the Discord that this went on sale. It's Underdogs. It came out early in the year, and it was a pretty good sale. I wasn't really interested in it in the beginning of the year, at least not at whatever its normal price is. But it's by One Hamza that did Racket NX, and it's a fighting mech game. And frankly, I've not spent enough time with it. I put it on this list because I see its potential. The general gameplay, right? Like mechs work really well in VR, right? Like you get the scale, you feel like you're controlling a large machine. And this one seems to be pure kind of melee focused. I haven't unlocked any gun. I'm assuming there are no guns in it, or no, maybe some abilities. So again, I'm pretty early in it. So it made my list mostly out of potential. It was a really good price. The graphic fidelity looks really good. The performance was really smooth. It puts enough window dressing around the main mechanic, and that you go from match to match, you earn money, you can buy upgrades, you can make decisions. So it's gamified a little bit, that you're not just blade and sorcery style, you're not just in an environment hitting things with no purpose. So for me, I kind of need that element to it. I really need a purpose of why I'm doing something. Maybe it's just my neurology, right? But for that reason, and because I think it has a lot of potential, if I'm able to spend a lot of time with it, to have a really good value. So I put it in as my number 2.
Yeah, this is the sort of game where I should probably like it, because I like mech games. I like being in a cockpit in a big hulking robot, but I never picked it up because I watched the trailer and the sort of like the total bombastic nature of the soundtrack and the voiceovers and just the attitude of the characters and the sound and everything. It really just put me off. I hate it. It's like some of the old Dirt games where they're sort of like, no.
Yeah, it's very kind of Borderlands kind of tone to it.
That's just if you want to like turn me off from a game, just go out with this over the top sort of soundtrack and characters shouting and screaming and hollering, and it's like maybe it's a good game, but I
get that. If this was a flat game, it would put me off too. I think VR needs some depth and some polish in that direction, even if it's not something that's a style or that I may particularly like. It's not like there's tons of stuff that has character, right?
Yeah.
Like we just talked about the pirate game, and there was no character to it. Yeah, it's a pirate, right? But that sense of character, whether you like that style or not, I think kind of is something that the industry needs.
Yeah, fair enough. Gary, what's your second?
Okay, so I'm gonna say Behemoth. But the problem is that I've not finished it, that's the thing. And I'm almost tempted to say the Halo VR mod, not that I've played all the way through Halo in VR either, but that when I was thinking about this, I just think that Halo, that mod really, it changed my mind on, because I never expected it to be as good as it is, that mod, and I think they've done a really great job. It's not perfect, and there's some VR mechanics that are not great. It doesn't feel great all the way through or anything, but they just did a fantastic job on that mod. But I'm going to say Behemoth anyway, because I remember I've not played it for a little while, but I remember the feeling of going in and thinking this is a really great game. And I played through the first Behemoth. So last time we spoke about this, I probably played half an hour, 45 minutes or so past the first Behemoth, and then I've gone in again and played a little bit more, and it's still good. I'm just struggling to really think of my favourite VR games of the past year. I've gone through all our documents and all the games that we've spoke about, and it really does come down quite boringly to a lot of these big games that released at the end of the year. And I do think Behemoth is a good game, so it's got to be on the list. I think I'm going to have better opinions when I've finished it, and I hear so many opinions on this game where people don't like the bits in between the Behemoths, and then people say that there's certain aspects of it that they don't like and certain aspects that they really do like. And I don't know where I fall on all these different things yet, but I really enjoyed what I've played so far. Very much like Arken Age, it's got to be in there for me. So that's probably where I fall. It's a little bit boring because it's another one of those big VR games of this year, like Batman. So yeah.
If I had to pick one of the bigger games, I think probably Behemoth would have got my vote, but I haven't picked any of those. So yeah. Okay, so second on my list, I'm blatantly cheating. I've got at number two is no order particularly, but I've got Spin Rhythm, Maestro, and Trombone Champ, or in other words, the entire music genre in VR for the past year, because I've had such a brilliant time in each of those and got addicted to each of those for a good month or two each, at least, probably. Spin Rhythm just did something different in where you could sit down and play a music rhythm game without working up a sweat. And the control options as well. You could use sort of virtual controls. You could use a joypad. You can use a mouse and keyboard if you want. If you're a musician and you've got like a music desk with twiddly knobs, you can use that. There is a community there behind it who do all sorts of control systems for it. And yeah, I just enjoyed it. There's a ridiculous amount of content with it, and the amount of backgrounds and backdrops as well was really good. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. Maestro was just something else entirely. Again, the presentation on Maestro was excellent. The gesturing to conducting the orchestra, again, a different take on a music game, and it's just so well done. Bit too much there, well, a lack of content, should I say. There wasn't really enough. They've done a DLC since, but yeah, I think it needed 3 times the amount of base content, really. But it's still an excellent game. And then Trombone Champ, we've talked about that enough. I really enjoyed that as well. They all do something different. Spin Rhythm's just great. Sit down, play it. Maestro, stand and conduct an orchestra. And then with Trombone Champ, the use of the controls for the trombone was just something different again. And yeah, I loved each and every one of them. So yeah, the music genre in VR is my second pick.
Cheating.
Lee had Into Black as well as one of his picks. Did I say that? I can't remember. So he's a couple of crossovers there. Steve, what's your third one?
I put a tie. Again, I didn't play all the big releases, so I'm digging to earlier in the year. But
yeah.
Max Mustard came to PC, so that's when I got it. I think I actually got it on Quest because they sold it for $1 if you had this code.
Oh yeah.
So I have it on Quest as well because it was $1. But I didn't play it there. And when it came to PC and it was on the Steam sale, so I grabbed it then. I think for $10 it was. So this kind of scratched the Lucky Tales itch, Astrobot did not come to VR. It should have. So this is probably the next best thing, and it's a far cry from an Astrobot quality title. But it was a good title. I didn't beat it, but I played it enough to kind of get that platformer feel, and it made my list because I had to come up with a few games. Sort of, it's not anything I'm going to rant and rave about, other than it's just kind of more of that platformer, cutesy Pixar. Performance is good, is impressive. Anybody can play it. It's accessible.
That's
but then I also kind of
Sorry, I was just going to say quickly on Max Mustard. I was very close to picking this one myself when I was going through the list of the games we've discussed. I was thinking this is a good game and it's one I enjoyed. Like you, I didn't finish it or anything like that either. So I don't know. Obviously it didn't stick with me enough because I played it a long time ago when it first came out. And it was just a little bit different with Behemoth. I've not finished that, but I feel compelled to play that more than this. I guess that's why I chose it.
I played all the way through Max Mustard, and I think I did a video with Lee. One of the odd first few times where we actually did like a standalone video on the channel, and it was good. It was very good. I totally disagree that it's like Astrobot for Quest or whatever or for PC. It's not in the same league. It's very good.
No, I know. That's what I was saying, because Astrobot didn't come. Like this kind of like it made me want to play it, right? Because I remember what Astrobot Rescue Mission was and how much I love that in VR.
Yeah.
So this kind of was like what I had to relegate myself to. And it's not a bad game. I don't wanna like knock it because it's not Astrobot. It's just Astrobot is so dang good. You know?
But yeah, it is a very good game. It is well worth anybody's time, definitely. I wouldn't argue with that. Gary, oh, okay, so I think...
Hang on.
Your third...
Yeah, Steve's got another one, I think, on his third.
I just said it as a tie because I was
champ,
coming up with it, and I put Trombone Champ on there because, I couldn't really decide between the two.
Yeah.
But we've talked enough about Trombone Champ this
year. Yeah. But yeah, so our final picks, we've got the same, haven't we, Gary? And
we have.
It's Arcade Time Capsule, which technically came out in the last couple of days, I think, of 2023, but nobody knew about it until 2024 anyway, and so it's our list. Screw it.
I'll just say that I only picked this because I wouldn't have even thought of this one until you mentioned it on your list, and I thought, that's got to be in there. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the best sort of retro arcade emulators you can get. It's unlike some of the other stuff out there, like UEVR, you can't customize it, but the actual quality and the feel of being in an arcade is pretty much unmatched, I think. The detail to the cabinets is absolutely stunning, and it's amazing. Every machine has got an attract screen running as you walk around, and you get that feeling of that old school feeling of all the sound just washing over you from like an old style arcade. Version 3 is due out, well, hopefully imminently. I think he's beta testing. Half-Life's beta testing it at Half-Life? Half-Deck. Half-Deck's beta testing it with some people at the moment, I think. And so hopefully it's a matter of days or weeks or whatever until version 3's out with an entirely new floor with, I think, is it 96 machines on it. Really looking forward to that.
On this video, you can see that I'm wandering around. If you've got these sort of generic machines as well, which you're still fully playable and stuff, but slowly it seems like Half-Deck is transferring these to the proper cabinets. He has to model all the cabinets and stuff. So, and it does seem like he goes into a lot of detail with these cabinets. And I think when we spoke about this last time, to me this is like it's a simulator. This is like an arcade simulator. That's what it is, and I absolutely love it. It does what New Retro Arcade Neon was doing, and it does it in a way which is, well, I think if you look at it on an aesthetic level and the machines and the arcade machines and stuff like that, it does it better than that. The only thing, and I mentioned this last time, the only thing I would like is the option to use motion controls with this. Physically walk around my room and go from one arcade machine to the next arcade machine would be a nice addition. That's not what he's got planned for it, and that's okay because we mentioned this last time as well. It's a passion project. This is free. He's just putting it out there so people can play what is essentially making for himself an arcade. So yeah, no complaints from me on this one, and playing it with an arcade stick is great. What I'll say is on that point, so this is where the developer Half-Deck has this point of the immersion of playing on an arcade stick while you're standing in front of this arcade cabinet is completely valid. Playing the games itself is way better if you've got a dedicated arcade stick to do that. whether you're sitting down with it on your lap or you're standing up, it doesn't matter. The arcade stick does make a difference. The immersion of being in an arcade and walking physically from one machine to another is something that I'm missing, that used to be in New Retro Arcade Neon. And I keep bringing this up, and I'm sorry I keep bringing it up, because the developer shouldn't care what I think. It's all about what he's developing anyway. And very, very immersive. And to play these games in this way is fantastic. I can't think, there's nothing that gives you the feeling of being in this, really. It's quite unique in that sense. So fantastic.
It is that, like you say, it's the way he's gone on it into it as a simulation. It's the detail. It's just nothing else matches it. Where are we? I think we've covered pretty much everything. Oh, Lee's final pick was actually Starship Troopers Continuum, which I think some people might go, huh? But in all honesty, I find it slightly hard to argue with him. And in some ways, there's some things about Starship Troopers I actually prefer to Into Black. I just think Into Black's an overall better package. Starship Troopers I actually liked the overall moment-to-moment gunplay on it. It's arcadey, but you can actually, but it has got manual reloads. You can use an auto reload if you really want to, but it's slower. And if you do a manual reload, you get a damage bonus. And again, playing it with somebody else, playing it multiplayer, it's just frantic. It's absolutely mad. We got to the end of one level, and me and Lee were just totally and utterly struggling. We'd sort of like pushed halfway up to where like the boss creature was, and we kept getting pushed back with all the spawning enemies that came coming in. And we finally managed to coordinate ourselves, rush it, and finally kill it. And but we fought for every step forward. We fought for on that, and the actual feeling of satisfaction was just brilliant. It can be quite a tough game. I actually found it easier on single player than playing with 2-player. And I know Lee's been back in and played it 3-player with I think it was with Buck and somebody else, maybe Scorpio, I can't remember. And he said it actually felt easier with 3-player than 2-player. And I thought 1-player was easier than 2-player. So maybe with 2 players, the balancing slightly on the harder side than 1 or 3 players. I don't know. But yeah, don't let the visuals put you off. They were also actually kind of send a PSVR 2 key through for us to test out as well. I think the PSVR 2 version needs some work. It's better on Quest 3 because on PSVR 2 it's 60 reprojected to 120, and it's like that. And the resolution isn't that great either. It's still a great game. It still plays really well. It's just, even though the image could be better on Quest, the Quest version it's clearer. It's just a clearer image, and there's obviously no reprojection. So I think the Quest is the way to play it, but it's still a good game. It's better than it looks on video, definitely. Steve, you've got some UEVR games if you want to rattle through those.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. I want to make sure we have enough time to get to the news. My real number one for the year was UEVR. I believe it released on January 1st of 24. So I put down 3 kind of standout UEVR titles for me, just kind of in sticking with the top 3. And my first one is Grounded. Ironically, another survival game. Once I finished Grounded in probably January, I didn't play any survival games again until December. It's just the timing of doing the show with you guys makes it seem like I'm doing nothing but survival stuff. But Grounded is a really, really kind of a perfect game for UEVR. It'd be nice if they had a native mod and it had motion controls, because there is a lot of melee combat to it. I could see it working a lot like the Valheim mod, honestly. But it has, so it's like the first thing that will come to anybody's mind is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, because you're in the backyard, you've been shrunken down, and you have to survive. There's a plot, there's a narrative to it, but you instead of in most survival games where you chop down a tree, instead of that you chop down a blade of grass, and you build your base that way, and you're constantly unlocking things, and you make shields and swords and spears and bows and arrows, but instead of out of typical items, you're making it out of bug parts and dandelions and things that you would find in a backyard, and you have to battle large beetles and ladybugs, and it's a good balance of combat and crafting and survival. There is a hunger and thirst mechanic, and it's not the most resource intensive UEVR title, and technically I think it was Luke Ross had it working in his mod as well, but you're way better off going UEVR. And so you have to play it with a gamepad. I think someone maybe hacked in some 3DOF motion controls, but I'd be hard pressed that would be worth it on this title. So I highly recommend it. I was completely just kind of floored by this game. My next title was Silent Hill 2 Remake. I'm a big horror fan. I've done all the RE mods, played through Resident Evil 7 actually multiple times in VR. And Silent Hill is a franchise that I think Konami has squandered. It kind of was the B-rate Resident Evil in the late 90s, early 2000s, maybe even going back before that, and then it fell off, and now they're getting in on the remake approach that Capcom has been doing, and the developer has done actually a really good job with this remake, and being able to experience it in VR again, with a gamepad and whatnot. But that's better to me than playing a game flat. You get the environment, you get the feeling of dread, the full visual and audio immersion. So that made my number 2, and then my last one. I'm a big Souls fan. I like almost everything FromSoft has put out. I've played them all. I kind of miss the early Dark Souls and Demon Souls days, but everything that's kind of come out since Bloodborne, I've played and beaten. And Lies of P is not a FromSoft game, but they copied. Like they were just like, we're copying FromSoft. We don't care, and it plays. I think Souls-like games plays really well in VR. There was that game that came out in 2016, Gary. I can't remember. It was on Oculus initially.
Oh, Chronos.
Yeah. Yes. So it plays a lot like that, except it's the more of the Souls type formula. It looks fantastic, and the UEVR opens up like all of these games, right? Like I think in the VR community, we go from game to game. We hope that the next big thing's around the corner, and sometimes it is. We had a really good fall this past year, but then there's large droughts, and I really think having these mods to kind of cover those droughts and let you get leverage out of your headset so that it's not just sitting there collecting dust until the next big game comes, I think is a tremendous value. And I've probably spent more time in a headset because of this and because of UEVR this year than I have in the last 2 or 3 years, really since we stopped doing VR Roundtable, and because I had a reason to go back in there every day. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to upgrade my PC, which is the next topic anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Main Fan mentioned in chat that we haven't played Alien, and shockingly, no, we haven't. It's again like I don't know why. Who's it by? Servius, isn't it?
Yeah, Servius.
Have we slagged off any of their games before? because they just did not get. They just totally blanked us.
No, no, we've not. I don't know. Thing is, it's one that. The thing is, I was happy to like buy it and play it. The problem is when you start to hear all these opinions on it and they don't really align with what you want. I've heard this thing about wave shooter. This is really putting me off Alien. Like it's elements of wave shooter-ish stuff.
I really wanted it on PSVR, and I was just waiting for somebody to say, "Oh, it's not reprojected," and I'd have clicked the buy button there and then. And unfortunately, it's a reprojected game. I know there's a PC one, but then I was watching. I think it was Mainfan's video, and he's got a 4090, and I think it was his video. Apologies if it wasn't. And he said something like, "Oh, I can see some reprojection," and I went, I thought, if he can see reprojection on a 4090, my 4070 is not gonna. I don't know. Yeah, it's all those little things, and the sort of like 7 out of 10 reviews sort of put me off buying it.
What it is, the endless respawns of the aliens. That's what I mean when people are saying wave. People have literally said it feels like a wave shooter in places. Mainfan saying it's not a wave shooter. But what it is, it's like the endless respawns of these aliens. That's what's putting me off. If I don't know, I'll pick it up. I'll wait for a sale though. It's not. I'm not that desperate to play it.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate time around Christmas time as well. If you know, if you've got to splash out on games, it's a bit. Yeah, but yeah, not like I say though. Do not expect we've got any God-given right to get a free copy of anything. But please, at least send an email back saying, "I'm sorry, we're not giving any more keys out." And it's like, yeah, fine, I'll pick it up.
Well, Mainfan says they're not endless; they stop. That's yeah. Well, if that's the case, it might be different. It might be a different thing because I've heard people say that it doesn't. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't really comment on it. I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Oh! Good afternoon, Lee. He's managed to make it into chat. I think he's actually the only one of us who has actually played any of it at all. I know he's had. I think he got to play 30 minutes.
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
he did. Yeah.
Why does the android wear glasses? It's like, huh? Why? It does seem a bit weird, but anyway. So onto the hardware, and okay. So what do we make of the GeForce RTX 50 series announcements with their overblown claims by the look of it? And maybe not overblown, depending on how you look at frame generation and everything else. And is that really going to make any difference for those of us who want it for VR? Steve, are you buying one?
Yeah. Well, hey, we talked about it before we were able to go live. We were chatting. It's like, yes, I intend to buy a 5090. I had a 1080 Ti, and then a 2080 Ti, and then a 3080 Ti, and then they kind of dumped the Ti's and did the 4090, and I'm going to go for the 5090. Now, the hard part of making the decision and having the funds to do so then becomes the second wave battle of will I actually be able to reserve one and get one? So I intend to. So we'll just leave it at that. I don't know that I will get one, at least at launch, but I'm going to try. So if I can find somewhere that'll let me push the buy button, I'm going to push it. Now I will say the 5090. So this release is very interesting, right? Because Nvidia certainly isn't thinking about VR consumers at all, right? No. We're just not on their radar in any way. What is on their radar is machine learning and AI and ray tracing and all of that, which makes perfect sense because for flat gaming, the things that they're able to do and the graphical increases that they're able to make through this approach and with the DLSS and everything is actually very impressive. It's very impressive technology. But most of that, certainly the frame generation, isn't going to matter for VR consumers. We've kind of had our own frame generation, since 2016 with motion smoothing and space warp and all that. So it's not like we don't have some element of frame generation anyway.
Does UEVR use anything like that at all?
Well, I mean, it would still, because it's running through OpenXR or Steam VR or whatever. The the motion smoothing still in there. Yes.
Yeah.
No different than if you're playing a VR game, because those are all through the VR runtimes. But the UEVR stuff does leverage DLSS. So a lot of games that even on a 4090, to kind of brute force them into native stereo VR, I have to turn DLSS on.
Right.
And it works fine. You can see some. I think VR makes it a little bit easier to see some DLSS artifacting, but you get used to it, and you kind of tune it out because you're enjoying the game that you're playing.
Yeah.
So of the lineup, though, right, when you look at it, it's like in previous generations, and I'm not a silicon expert. I'm not like, I know I build my own computers. I know enough about them. But, I'm only speaking here as a sort of a prosumer level, maybe type consumer. And when you look at the previous generation releases, you've seen clear increases in CUDA core capabilities, right? Clear jumps. This release, if you look at a 5080 versus a 4080 and a 5070 Ti versus a 47 Ti, there's not massive jumps in CUDA cores.
Yeah.
And that's really what VR is going to use to do most of its drawing of its frames, its rasterization. So the 5090 does show about a 30% increase over the 4090. So that's why I'm going to go for it. I'm hoping to get around a 25, 30, 40% uplift in performance. But if someone listening to this has a 4080 and is going to get a 5080, I'm not, for VR specifically, I'm not sure you're going to get a ton more performance. Now in flat gaming, because it's going to have better AI T-flops and better ray tracing performance, I think you'll get better results using all of those technologies than you will on a 4000 series cards. But for VR, specifically a 4000 series to 5000 series, unless it's a 4090 to 5090, I'm not sure there's going to be any notable uplift. And it's kind of sucks, I think. But I understand it. I understand why Nvidia is focusing the way they are.
Yeah. Well, go on.
I was say on my 4070 Ti, I do use, on some games anyway, I use flat games. I do use DLSS and the frame gen stuff, what's on there, and that doesn't bother me. It's like I say, sometimes you can see the odd artifact or whatever, but the overall benefit I think is generally worth it. I think you, Gary, might be in a better a better place for upgrading, because you'll be skipping a generation.
Yeah.
Where I'll be going from one to another, and if I do upgrade, I've absolutely got to pull the trigger on my stuff I've got sat in a cart at the minute and get the new processor and memory and motherboard and everything else. Which means if I go for a graphics card at the end of the month, I'm not going to be going above a 5080. It's just too much overall, including the rest of the PC upgrade. If I didn't have to upgrade the rest of the PC, would I do it? I still don't know. But yeah, going from this generation to the next one, I think I'd be getting a minimal upgrade.
Yeah, I think so. Like you're on a 4070 or 4070 Ti?
70 Ti, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's going to be a huge uplift, honestly.
Yeah.
I think now, reviews will come out, and all of the good YouTubers like Gamers Nexus and Jay's 2 Cents and all that, they will give you performance benchmarks with all of the AI stuff turned off, so you can kind of then better gauge what the VR performance is going to be from those benchmarks. But if I was like you, Gary, like I would keep my eye on like secondhand 4090s.
That's exactly where I was going.
You may get more bang for your buck upgrading to a 4090 than you would a 5080.
I was looking on eBay, actually. They are currently going, you can get 40. Well, I've seen a few, some are not, but there's been a few that are £1,000 now on eBay, which is pretty good when you consider that. I could go for like the 5080, which is going to be around £1,000 as well. But then the 4090, you've got loads more VRAM, and probably, I don't know, is the 5080 going to be, in terms of raw performance, going to be up to 4090 standard? I don't know. I've got to wait for benchmarks and reviews and stuff like that.
For VR, it may not. It may 5080 may underperform a 4090.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So, because I'm not going to go to a 5090, that's not going to happen. That's the thing. I'll go to maybe and it won't be initially as well. It'll probably be maybe in 4-5 months' time, something like that. That I finally pull the trigger on it. But then I'm only going up to £1,000. That's the hard limit that I'm going to set on this. So a 4090 might be the better option for me for VR, which is I don't care about flat gaming on my PC. I'll play a little bit, but it's not. I don't use it for that. It's VR that I want it for.
Yeah. And then the new DLSS 4, I believe is going to come to the 4000 series anyway. So for a game like Microsoft Flight Simulator, that I'm assuming, and I think I've seen someone say that GeForce is going to put a DLSS swapper in their app, right? Like, so some games, like if a game is released and the game developer doesn't update the DLSS version, you can go through and you can update it by dragging and dropping DLL files and going through all this crap. And I think Nvidia is going to try to just kind of put that in their app so that they're able to do that for you. So if a developer does not update from DLSS 1 to DLSS 4 or something, that you can kind of do it through Nvidia's app, and will make some of that stuff perform better as well. So yeah, I think on one hand, I think the prices, particularly for the 5080, were better than what most people were expecting for this reveal. And in fact, although the 5090 went up in cost compared to the 4090 by a good 30% or whatever, it's still cheaper than what some of the rumors were saying. Some people were saying that the 5090 was going to be $2,500, and so I think from a pricing perspective, okay, right? I kind of give them a B on it, right? An A would have been holding existing prices, but not too bad.
The problem is when you look at what a lot of the reviewers, like you say, Gaming Nexus and those other reviewers that are going to be getting these early and giving us these reviews and these benchmarks and stuff, what they're saying is that the gap between the 5090 and the 5080 is huge, which obviously is reflected in the price, but it feels like Nvidia changing the scope of what each thing means now. Like a 5080 is not really what a 5080 or an 80 generation used to be back 5-6 years ago. Like the 1080 and the 1080 Ti were well, the Ti obviously became the 90, but the 1080 was a good card, and the Ti was a little bit better than that. Now it's like you've got a 5080 and a 5090, and the gap is huge. They're saying like double the performance over a 5080, and of course it's double the cost.
It's got double the cores.
Yeah,
it's double the cost. Yeah. It's double the cores.
And so that
runs, the clock is a little bit slower, so I don't know that it'll be a full doubling of performance.
But the end result
it's double the silicon.
Yeah, but the end result is the fact is that an 80 card is no longer what it used to be, even though the cost still reflects that. And I think that's what I don't know where I fall on that. So I'm going to wait for reviews, because what like Digital Foundry and all of these places will tell you really, like, in terms of value, and that's what I want. I want a card which is giving me the best value. That's really all it comes down to. And I'm tempted even by like the 5070 Ti, which might be, I mean, it's still going to be a massive upgrade over my 3080 anyway, I would imagine, hopefully, but we'll see.
This is the problem with all these benchmarks we're throwing around, isn't it? With all the frame gen stuff at the moment, we need the raw numbers. It's I don't know. I'm really struggling with it. And now mentioning the thought of just buy a second-hand 4090, that just that's definitely something I'm going to look out for. And VR Spy Guy said, I wish Team Red could catch up, and that's true. It's like at AMD. I'm not going to get an AMD card just for the risk in terms of VR, because you often hear the compatibility and stuff like that. But it does make you can even consider that. I've got a tiny
inkling of consideration for that, but I don't think I'll ever I'll do that
if,
this
if,
moment.
if they could just get to the same place in graphics cards where they are in processors at the moment, oh wow, we'd be laughing.
Yeah.
Then you have Intel out there not making enough of a splash. I think I think AMD, Gary, is the reason for the point you were making about the 80 card not being kind of the flagship or being the anchor of the lineup. And that's because the gap between Team Red and Team Green, these last 3 or 4 generations has just widened further and further and further and further. AMD can no longer compete. So the 5090 is hanging out there all by itself. Yeah. And for, frankly, crazy consumers like me that will pay that price, and I rationalize it because you can always use more GPU in VR.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how flat gamers rationalize it, right? Like, because I don't know what they're getting. I mean, I guess maybe if you're playing a competitive game and you want to go from 200 frames a second to 240 frames a second or something, you need the extreme ends of it. But if you're just, plan on playing, GTA 6, when it comes out, like, what does a 5090 give you that a 5080 isn't going to, for a game like that? I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's It's
the
thought of spending all that money. It's
I'm toying with the idea of just seeing if I can get a 5080, but on the pre-orders. But really, I don't expect to, and I don't think I'll even try when it comes down to it. Simply because I want to wait for reviews. I want to get the best value card. This is going to be the card that will see me through the next 4 years or so. So I'll probably just wait and see what happens with it.
This is the thing, and it's a case of how long do you think that, given anything you buy, how long is it going to last? I mean, with CPUs, that I say, my current CPUs lasted me the last 7 years, which is the longest I have ever gone on a processor ever. But so it definitely needs an upgrade. But I just don't. I never see a graphics card lasting that long. That's the problem.
I've had this 3080 for 4 years, or 5. Might be. When did it come out? It might be? It's probably 4 years, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So it served me well, but it's a lot of money, and every time I buy a new one, the money goes up, and it's up and up and up, and I don't know what else to say. Because to be honest, I sort of there's part of me that even thinks maybe I'll wait a few months longer, save up, and maybe go for that 5090. But that 2000, it seems ridiculous.
It does. Like I said, I've said plenty of times before. The time I bought a 1080 Ti, which is the first time I went for an 80 series card, when the 70 series were always the middle ground, and then the 80 were always the top end. And then I bought, I always used to go with a 70 card, and then I bought a 1080 Ti. It was just over 600 when I bought mine. And I thought, wow, I'll never pay that for a graphics card again. And unfortunately, I was right, but I was, wrong in the totally opposite direction. Where now it's like, I'm thinking of paying $1,000. I never expected to pay over 600 quid ever again, but that's how insane things have got. But,
600 when the 1080 Ti was out is probably close to $1,000 in terms of
probably
after inflation and all that anyway. And the other thing, like, I just say in my own personal case, because I'll be offloading a 4090, my net cost is $2K. And then when you upgrade every generation and you're able to offload the previous, it subsidizes some of that cost. It almost becomes more like you're leasing a GPU, like some people lease a car rather than, But still, it's a lot of money. But I've held off. I did not buy Pimax Crystal. I didn't get any of these fringe high-end headsets, and kind of sticking with the Quest. And this is where my money's going, into the GPU.
Yeah.
Oh well, like as Main Hanson, if you think GPUs are expensive, try getting into pinball. It's like, what are them? Some of them $20,000 a table or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think unless anybody's got anything else they want to mention, that's all we've got.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Yep. Okie dokie. Well, thank you, everybody who's been listening and who's been hanging out in chat. We really appreciate you spending some of your Saturday with us. Thank you so very much. If you haven't already done, please please subscribe if you haven't. That's an absolute definite please. We need subscribers, not for getting money, but it makes a difference in being able to get access to stuff. So if you haven't subscribed, that would really be appreciated. And until next time, cheers, everyone.
See you next time.